Hello, welcome back to another episode of the African Five-A-Side podcast. I'm your host, Maher Mazahi. This podcast, as always, is brought to you by africasaCountry.com. And today I have with me somebody that I've known for, well, maybe close to a decade now, one of the most, in my opinion, knowledgeable minds on Egyptian football, Al Ahly fan extraordinaire, Ahmed Assem. And we're here to preview the first leg of the African Champions League. Ahmed, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. How's everything?
Doing very well. Al Ahly are chasing their 12th title. They're by and far the most successful club in Africa. Nobody else has even close to the number of Champions League titles that Al Ahly has. They're also qualified for their record fifth consecutive Champions League final. Ahmed, I think when the rest of the continent looks at Al Ahly, I think the main question is how does Al Ahly do it? What makes Al Ahly Al Ahly? There are many big clubs around the continent. How does Al Ahly have this kind of continued success?
I think okay, so I think there's two things or two parts of the story. There's one part where we can't discard, which is that Al Ahly are a football powerhouse and also have a lot of money in comparison to a lot of clubs around the continent. So I think this is one part that aids with or aids like Al Ahly's endeavors in Africa. However, I think the other part of the story is that, in my opinion, Al Ahly, or I mean, being in Al Ahly or like having a job inside Al Ahly, in terms of being in the coaching staff or be it in the board of directors or whatever, it's one of the most stressful jobs in world football because you're expected to win every single thing. So, for example, we won the most important game in the club's history against Zamalek, and everyone was very happy. We won the CAF Champions League title. We hadn't won it since 2013.
This is in 2018, 19, I believe.
20. It was in like the
2020,
COVID
yes, the
year.
COVID,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
And then we hadn't won it since 2013. And um, a few days later, we were playing Ittihad in the cup. And I'm in a WhatsApp group full of Ahly fans, and like all of them were swearing at the players. I mean, this is like an unrivaled level of pressure players are expected to perform under. And so when you combine both together, I think that's always a recipe for success. It's also a recipe for I mean, in my opinion, huge amounts of toxicity as well in terms of like the fan base and whatnot. So I think that's what makes Al Ahly Al Ahly.
Well,
If we come up with 2 points.
my natural question then, my next question is, does it ever get boring or meaningless? Maybe those are two words that are maybe too big for what it is, but if you talk about winning the biggest match in the club's history and then people are still stressed in the next match, does it
Yeah.
ever get, yeah, like, do you ever get used to the success?
I mean, to a degree, like I was speaking to a friend of mine a few days ago, and he's like, I think what Ahly fans feel isn't like euphoria and joy as much as it's also relief. And so you don't usually like equate relief with winning. You equate relief with maybe not winning a title, but rather, oh, maybe avoiding relegation. But at Al Ahly, it's usually a mix of both. So you feel euphoria, but at the same time you feel relief. You beat Wydad in the CAF Champions League final in Casablanca, but you feel relieved because they haven't won three CAF Champions League finals in a row against you. So I don't think it gets boring. It just gets more stressful to a lot of fans because how can we not win every single year? And I mean, that's an unrivaled level of expectation. And that's why I always feel for the players. I'm like, okay, the players need a rest. But no, you win the league, you're expected to win the cup, you're expected to win the derby against the Malik, you're expected to win in Africa, you're expected to go to the Club World Cup and reach the final. We haven't been able to do that. And then this year, when we finished third, people are like, oh, okay, we didn't reach the final. So it's like there's always something to look forward to.
Well, that was actually my next question is, you guys are the kings of Africa. You guys are the kings of Egypt. Is there another horizon? Is it that Club World Cup? Like, do you think that would bring in an unprecedented amount of enthusiasm or enthusiasm that you guys haven't seen in a very long time? Would it be the Club World Cup? Would it be horizons beyond that, sort of?
I was actually like I discuss this with Ahly fans all the time. I'm like, where do we go from there? And like a lot of them are say, okay, then we reach the final of the Club World Cup. But then let's be completely honest, if we reach the final of the Club World Cup, we're not winning it because the discrepancy between
Yeah,
Europe and
huge.
then yeah,
Mm.
it's huge. It's huge. I mean, no non-European team will be able to compete in the Club World Cup against like European teams. So I think okay, third is good. I mean, third is decent because then you beat the champions of Asia, you beat like the champions of North America, and then in 2021 we beat the champions of South America. And so I don't really know where do we go from or where we go from there. I think what Ahly fans are chasing at the moment is winning three consecutive CAF Champions League titles. I think this is because every time we win two in a row and then we lose a final. I mean, we won 2005, 2006, and then we played Etoile du Sahel in 2007, and then we lost in Cairo. And then we won 2020 against Zamalek, 2021 against Kaiser Chiefs, and then in 2022 we lost to Wydad. And so I think that's what they're chasing. They're chasing more records at the moment. How do we destroy records?
It's fascinating, especially when you compare and contrast it with a club like Sundowns, for example. And I've watched, so many different press conferences from the coach Mokoena, and he talks about, the difficulty of just getting to the semifinals and the sort of mental block that the club experiences, and them having to win the Champions League. And they've only won once in 2016, and the difficulty of them 8 years on. I think everybody on the continent has an enormous amount of respect for Sundowns and the way they play and the quality of
Of
players.
course.
But for them to not make it, to not win another final, I think has probably been slightly disappointing. I think most people would agree with that. So my question is, do you believe in football DNA? Do you believe that that exists?
I mean, if you look at like clubs like Real Madrid and Al Ahly, and then you look at how both sides like sort of play and how they approach knockout games in general. I think there's a certain DNA or a certain expectation to win, and then there isn't like of course there's respect. So we respect Esperance, we respect Sundowns, we respect Wydad, but then there isn't any fear at all. And then when a player like comes in and plays for Al Ahly, I mean, this fear sort of eradicated in the process. You play for Al Ahly, you're expected to win. And so I don't know. I mean, I wasn't a firm believer in football DNA, but then I see this current generation of Ahly players. Okay, they're a good generation, sure thing. But then they're also not the best generation in the club's history as well. I mean, I think they're a historic generation, but then a lot of players have changed. And then a lot of players have experienced like dips in form and like it's like the equivalent of going back revisiting the 2005 2000 or 2005 2009 team, and then you sort of remove Abu Trika and you sort of get a different rendition to this team. Now this team is now playing without El Shennawi. um Solaya was a main pillar of the team, he isn't anymore. Hamdi Fathi's left. Muhammad Abdelminam is sort of new to the team. The team that won the final again in 2020 against Zamalek, a lot of the players aren't there. And so you sort of like figure out, okay, so maybe there is football DNA at this club, and that's why we tend to win in Africa. And I think this football DNA is a lot of it, I mean, down to the club, and a lot of it is down to Manuel Jose as well. Um, and like winning in the way he did from 2005 onwards.
Yeah, and just to buttress your point, I mean, when you think about it, you talk about, the success of this current iteration of Al Ahly, and they're going up against the best Sundown side ever. Historic what they're doing in the South African League. They're going up against probably the most consistent run of Wydad and Taraji Esperance Tunis. So I think it's pretty impressive what Al Ahly's been able to do. If you don't mind, we're going to jump quickly into this year's Champions League campaign.
Sure thing.
Um, Al Ahly have only conceded one goal throughout the tournament. They pretty, I think, in my opinion, handily have gone through the knockout stages. If I'm not mistaken, winning 3-0 on aggregate each time, both against Mazembe and against Simba.
Yeah.
Um, Yet, I mean, just to touch on your last point, I don't really see one player that's sort of been absolutely brilliant. Like last year, for example, in the knockout stages, I remember Percy Tau really, really impressing up until the final. Um, this year, I mean, you have a bunch of people contributing in so many different ways, and then people are picking up injuries. And what's been your read on this Champions League campaign?
If I'm going to be completely honest, I think this CAF Champions League campaign is one of the worst I've ever seen in my lifetime. And it's not Al Ahly. I think in terms of the overall level of the competition, it isn't as good as the past few years. I think in different or in different circumstances, Ahly could have been knocked out. I think people don't realize we concede a huge amount of shots. And then we're very bad at set pieces as well. And so we concede a lot of good quality shots, and then people just read the statistic and they're like, okay, so Ahly conceded, what was it, one goal in the entire competition? Yes, okay, but against Midiyama, we could have conceded. Against Mazembe, we were let off by VAR.
Yeah. And they
Again,
miss a lot of chances, easy chances too, Mazembe.
yeah. And the game, like in Lubumbashi, I mean, it was like mostly one-sided. I mean, with the exception of the two chances we missed, I don't think we really missed anything. And so I think this current Ahly team or this current campaign it's a very weird one in that okay, we're in the final, but it doesn't seem as emphatic as previous years. So for example, last year was an emphatic run of games. You beat Raja, and then you go and beat Esperance, and then you play with that in the final. And then you could have missed out on the knockout stages if it wasn't for Ronwen Williams saving a penalty for
Yeah,
Watan
yeah, yeah.
Taha. And so this season, it just feels like a bit bland in terms of the like the journey as well. So that's I think how a lot of Ali fans sort of approach it. It's like, okay, we're in the final. Has it been as emphatic as it could have been? No.
Has there been one or two players that have stood out to you as consistent performers throughout the run or no?
Mustafa Shobir.
The
Mustafa Shobir,
goalkeeper who stepped in for Mohamed Shinawi when he picked up an injury at the AFCON.
yes. Mustafa Shobir is um or has been our best performer, in my opinion, since El Shenawi picked up the injury. And I think without him, we wouldn't have kept the number of clean sheets we've kept. And we wouldn't, I mean, the statistic wouldn't have read Al Ahly conceding 0 goals in the knockout stages. I think his influence has been insane. And I think it's downplayed by the fact that it's Al Ahly. But as I said, we concede a lot of good shots. But then at the same time, the real mainstay in this generation is Ali Ma'loul. And Ali Ma'loul is still, I mean, he's definitely like my favorite player of all time, and not named Mohamed Abu Trika. And I think a lot of Ali fans share the same sentiment. But then it's expected from Ma'loul. I mean, it's not like the emphatic run of like last year. And then you have a really good goalkeeper or a standing goalkeeper is performing really well. And so, other than that, it's like it's a bit patchy in terms of how we play.
Ali Ma'loul, of course, Tunisian left back, going back home to
Yeah.
play in this first leg. Um, So let's talk about some team news really quickly. From what I gather, Amr Souley is not going to be available for this match. Neither is Ahmed Nabil Kouka. Ahmed Abdul Qadir, who had a pretty decent match against Mazembe using his pace on the wing. Uh, Tahar Mohammed and Mohamed Dawi, the other Tunisian, they're all unavailable for various reasons. Al Ahly do get their star goalkeeper, their veteran goalkeeper, Mohamed Shinawi back and Aliou Dieng back. Do you anticipate Marcel Kohler using those more established names, Dieng and Shinawi, and putting them back into the starting lineup, considering what we just said about Shubir, the replacement goalkeeper? Do you think he's going to start both of them or maybe just start Dieng? since Sulaya and Kukara. What's your reading on the situation? How do you see the team news before this first leg?
I think Shobair will start 100%. I don't think El Shenawi starts. I think Shobair's form at the moment is better than El Shenawi's form in the last, or in like the year and a half prior to his injury. So I think Shobair's form at the moment um, gives him a starting berth. And I think Dieng has to play. I think I mean, we're definitely not using Nedved. I think with Kuka out injured, you have to use Dieng, and that's like sort of the main issue with in like midfield. If we don't have Marwan Atiyah, if we don't have Imam Ashur, Amr Sulaya is sort of, I mean, his age is showing a bit. It has been for a few years since 2021, and so. I think Dieng easily gets into the starting lineup. However, actually, like the thing is that Ahly's best performer, arguably their best performer in the last 3 or 4 games, is Omar Kamal, but he's cup tied, so he's not featuring for Al Ahly in the final. And that's like the sort of the ironic thing about it. It's like our best player at the moment, or one of our best players, is actually not available for the game because he's cup tied.
Where'd he come from? Was it is Pyramids?
Future.
No. Future. Yes, 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 yes. My bad. And yeah. So let's wrap up quickly. Just one final question. What gives you confidence going into this first leg? And what are you a little bit scared of in this first leg?
I think this is the first time we're playing Esperance with a proper goalkeeper. I mean, them having a proper goalkeeper.
Yeah,
I think
two of the best goalkeepers in this tournament have been young North Africans. The Tunisian Esperance goalkeeper Aman Lahmamish, 19 years old, has been absolutely fantastic throughout the Champions League qualification campaign. And we already spoke about Shubir, who I believe is 24 of Al Ahly. So two very young, exciting North African goalkeepers in the future. Sorry to interrupt you, but you're saying.
no problem. Yeah, I mean, I think this is the first time I mean, long gone are the days of Muaz bin Shrifeya. And so we're playing an Esperance team with a really good goalkeeper. We're playing against a very organized Esperance team. And I think every time Al Ahly this season have come up against more organized opposition, we tend to struggle. So I think this is the area that I'm pretty much scared of. I think we concede a lot of good quality shots. We're very bad at set pieces. However, what gives me confidence is that Rodis is more of it's like the antithesis of Mohammed Al Khamis. Mohammed Al Khamis, prior to the last year's final, we had horrible memories there, as opposed to Rodis, where players are maybe more accustomed to playing there. However, it's going to be a really tough game, and I don't know what to expect. I think it's 100%. I think there's like a lot, 100% to play for, and I think it's a 50-50 game. Um, which Al Ahly side will show up and which players will be in form, I mean, just like any other final, it's going to be decided by fine margins.
You care to throw in a prediction for this first leg?
I mean, I'll throw in an optimistic prediction and say maybe 1-1.
Okay,
Maybe
okay.
1-1.
I thought you were gonna say Al Ahly are gonna win in Tunis. Okay, 1-1. I could see that happening as well.
I mean,
Uh,
I don't see us winning there, but if we win
mm,
there, it's going to be great, and
yeah.
it gives us the opportunity to win the CAF Champions League in Cairo for only the fifth time. I mean, in Cairo with fans, and we haven't done so since 2013.
So that would be it'd be a feel-good story, back to the good old days, kind of.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Ahmed. I really enjoyed speaking to you today, and yeah, very much looking forward to this first leg of this CAF Champions League final between Esperance Tunis and Al Ahly in Tunis on Saturday evening. Speak to you soon. Peace.